morning everyone. Welcome back to the session on fundamentals of computers. We were discussing about operating system and different types of operating systems. Previously in the last class we were talking about process management and then the process management mechanisms in the early systems, then the use of job control statements in batch processing. Then we were discussing about multiprogramming, what are the different types of multiprogrammings we have, and also what do you mean by concurrency or concurrently performing many tasks at a time. And we were discussing about CPU bound operations and input output bound operations. And then we saw this block diagram on how this uniprogramming is accessing the main memory and the CPU. After that we just saw how multiprogramming is utilizing the same thing. And then we were discussing about the process states in multiprogramming, where a new process starts entering into the RAM when it is in a ready state, and then it waits for the CPU. When the CPU is idle, the next process jumps into the CPU and it performs its operations. If it requires any other input output operations, it will come here and it will check for that input output device which is idle or not. If it is idle, it will go, otherwise it will be in the block state until the input output device or the storage device is idle. Once it is idle, it will go there, it will perform its operations and get back to the ready state to get the remaining part of the process done. So this is how your multiprogramming works. And we also discussed that the requirements for multiprogramming systems: large memory, memory protection, job status preservation, proper job mix, CPU scheduling. We discussed about all these in the yesterday's class. And we have stopped over here where we will be starting with process control block or PCB. Just the same way where we were seeing about the CPU scheduling algorithms or anything, the same way we have a process control block. You call it PCB. This PCB is different from what we use in electronics, that is printed circuit board. That is where we integrate the circuits, we print the circuits onto that motherboard or any other circuit board for fabrication purposes. And this is PCB, which is related to your computer organization or computer working, that is process control block. In process control block we have this you are able to see this block diagram where we have process identifier, process state, process counter, value of various CPU registers, accounting and scheduling information, input output status, and so on. We were just in the first previous classes, we were only discussing about a small block diagram where we had connections for the input and output with the second with the storage unit, and the storage unit in turn is connected to the CPU. Generally, when you are asked about the definition of CPU, you can simply tell that it is the place where we have different operations being performed. All the processes happen in the CPU. The CPU is about ALU and control unit. This is all only to the outer part of what CPU is actually about. But internally, if you just see how the processes are being controlled by the PCB has so many instructions or so many parameters that it has to check for while scheduling the processes for different tasks. As an example, you can just see that the PCB or the process control block, it requires so many parameters, and some of the parameters are process identifier. First, it has to understand what kind of a process is it, and it has to identify the process state. Is the process just entering into the CPU, or has it already entered and is it coming back with some other task, or it has or it went to perform some input output operation and it has come back, and all the data or all the status of the process is available in the process state. And then we have program counter. The program counter is just, you can call it like a arithmetic adder or something, where it will just count each and every program, and based on the increment that it has, it will perform the next instruction that needs to be followed. That way the program counter helps us in shifting the programs one after the other and moving the programs forward after the previous program is completed. Then we have values of various CPU registers. Registers is a basic concept or the fundamental concept that you can talk about in the CPUs, because With the help of registers itself, the CPU is able to perform all its operations, store the data or perform all the calculations required. We are talking about arithmetic, we previously spoke about ALU, arithmetic and logical unit. How is the arithmetic and logical unit able to perform the addition, subtraction, multiplication or any other calculation that it has to perform? It is all based on the registers that it has. The arithmetic and logical unit, it has its own registers, the CPU in turn has its set of registers. All the data that we are providing or the instructions that we are providing to the CPU to perform a specific task is also in the form of a register. You can call that register as instruction set register. The operations that are related to the calculations are done by the accumulator register. That way we have different registers. You can just consider these registers as some storage, small storage units which help the CPU in performing its calculations. So, when all this is happening inside the CPU, the values of various registers should also be noted by the PCB, only then it will be able to perform the calculations or it will be able to manage the processes that are coming into the CPU. And then accounting and scheduling information. This is all related to the various tasks that are there in the queue and at what time or at what place it has to schedule those processes, and how is this PCB working and how is it scheduling those tasks is all related to this accounting and scheduling information. Then we have input output status information. What are the inputs that we have to this to the computer and what are the outputs we have and what are the status of it? Are they in a busy state or are they in an idle state? Only when the process control block understands the states of input and outputs, only then it can send the process from the block state to that input state. When if the if the process control block it doesn't have the information related to the input and output statuses, then when a process has to go to the input state, it doesn't know whether it is an idle state or not. But if it knows the status of the input and outputs, then if it is in an idle state, only then the process control block will send that particular task or the process to the input state. Otherwise, it will put it in that block state which we were discussing previously. That way, we have several other parameters or properties, functions that this PCB will handle. And PCB is used to preserve the job status of each loaded process in a multi-programming system. In a uni-programming system, you don't have this issue and you don't have to maintain so many programs, or you will not have a process control block in a so much sophisticated manner. You only require PCB, you only require one program to complete. Only after that you will be able to do the other programming in uni-programming. Uni-programming only takes one task at a time and it doesn't require multiple programs to be done at the same time or at almost at the same time. Okay. So, when we are trying to when we are trying to process so many tasks at the same time or in at the nearby, like near to the same time, then in such cases without process control block it becomes very difficult to handle those tasks and to maintain the information related to each and every task. And after process control block, so you understood the importance of process control block, or what is the CPU. CPU is not some very big gigantic unit that would be processing all the tasks that are coming into the CPU. It's not like that. The CPU is a very small component, and inside the CPU we have so many other, it looks very small to us as a small chip, but that small chip has so many other functions and so many other concepts that are underlying it, just like the process control block. You have to understand that. Okay. Next we will be talking about multitasking. Previously we were talking about uni-programming, then multi-programming, and then now we are into multitasking. We will first see what multitasking is. It is interleaved execution of multiple jobs, often referred to as tasks of the same user in a single user system. That is one way. And the other thing is computer systems used for multitasking are uniprocessor systems having only one CPU. And then treated differently from multi-programming, that refers to interleaved execution of multiple jobs in multi-user system. Now, if you see the first and the third point, if you try to compare the first and the third point, the first point is talking about multitasking, where it means interleaved, interleaved execution of multiple jobs in a single user system often refer to the tasks of the same user, whereas in multi-programming, if you see, treated differently from multi-programming, that is, which refers to interleaved execution of multiple jobs in multiple user system. The difference between multi-programming and multitasking is, in multitasking, a single user is able to perform multiple jobs in a single user system. Like suppose you have your own personal computer or laptop, in that you are performing multiple jobs at the same time, right? You are the only single user that who is using that system, and you are able to perform multiple jobs at the same time. That is, you are able to open, we had the same example previously, you are able to open Microsoft Word document, PDF, and your browser, music player, everything at the same time, and it appears to us as if all of them are happening at the same time. But in the reality, if you see in the real picture, all of them are happening almost at the same time, but not at the same time, because it's all in nanoseconds and picoseconds, where it's almost near to zero time that is taking for all of them to happen parallelly. So that is the reason we think about it like that. But in general, in reality, it is almost happening at the same time, but not at the same time. That too for a single user system. Whereas in multi-programming, there are multiple users who are using multiple programs based on the computer that they have. Okay, that is the difference. Over here, if you are a single programmer or if you are a single user, in the multi-programming, that user will only be able to perform one task at that time. That's it, not more than that. Whereas when the first user is doing one task at that time, there is another user who is using that computer, and he will be able to perform another task on that system. That is multi-user system. So you understood the difference between multitasking and multi-programming now, where in multi-programming there are multiple jobs in multi-user system. That is the only difference we have between multitasking and multi-programming. Then computer systems used for multitasking are uniprocessor, having only one CPU. We will see about it, what is it when you go to the other concepts. Or okay, let me tell you about this. This means, I told you that one single user is able to perform multiple tasks at the same time. That is, I gave you an example now about Microsoft Word, PDF, browser, and your music player. Then, but this statement is saying that computer systems used for multitasking are uniprocessor systems. Then how is it possible? In uniprocessor systems, we already discussed that they are only performing one task at a time. Okay, but we are able to achieve multiple tasks for the same user at the same time. That is through having multiple processors. Uniprocessor means one single processor. A dual processor means you have two processors over there, and you have a quad core processor means you have four processors over there. So we are not able, until now in the history, or until now in all the inventions we have, nobody or no computer is now able to perform any number of tasks or multiple tasks at the same time by the same processor. So that is the reason they created more cores inside the processor. That means they are creating more processors that are able to manage different programs at the same time. So if it is a uniprocessor means it has only one processor, and one task can be done only at one at a time. Whereas in dual core, you have two processors and two tasks can be done at the same time parallelly in the computer. When you have quad core, you have four processors, 1, 2, 3, 4. These four processors have four tasks assigned at the same time, and these four tasks are parallelly happening at the same time. So that is how multitasking, multi-programming is all about. And you have now also understood what is a multiprocessor and a uniprocessor, both of them. Okay. Next. So that is about multi-programming, multitasking and all. We discussed the core important concepts that are required for your operating system. I wanted to show you this slide because We are done with basic computer knowledge and computer organization. We know what are the different computer organizations that are happening inside your computer, and then we saw the components of computer, that block diagram with your secondary unit, your CPU and your input output units, and then we discussed about the different input devices, keyboard, mouse, touchpad and other pointing devices. After that, you have in your syllabus desktop icons and control panel objects. I just skipped this part because I wanted to first make you understand what operating system is, what are the different operating system types that we have, and then I wanted to continue with desktop icons and control panel objects along with creating files and all of them, because the reason is, when you read this desktop icons and control panel objects, what do you understand? Like, where are all these objects lying, where are the control panel objects lying, where are the desktop icons lying? They are all lying inside your operating system. If you don't install operating system into your computer, then will you be able to see the desktop icons, control panel objects, or your files, folders, exploring, like all the folders, how do you explore them, to the programs, anything? We won't be able to see anything. The base or the underlying program that we have is the operating system, on which we are able to build whatever we want and in the way we require. So first, that's why I completed these two unit parts first, and then I shifted towards operating systems, its types. Now it's time for you to understand, as you have a good understanding, I hope you have a good understanding about operating systems. So now we'll be shifting towards desktop icons and control panel objects. In the desktop icons and control panel objects, I'll show you what it is all about on the desktop itself, so that you will understand them better, and on the desktop itself I will try to explain you about desktop icons and control panel objects. After that, we will shift towards files, folders, and how do you explore files, folders, programs and all. Before understanding files and folders, you have to understand how is the file structure being managed by this operating system, and how are we able to find out a file which is somewhere in the computer. You have your C, D, and generally you have three kinds of drives, C, D and E, or otherwise you will have only C and D drives. In these drives, we have so much data that we are dumping each and every day, or based on the usage you have. When you have so many hundreds and thousands of folders or files in your computer, the computer is easily able to identify just by the keyword search that we do. On the top right corner, you have a keyword search available, right? When we click for any keyword on that search bar, you are able to find out, the computer is able to give you immediately whatever is that whatever files are related to that keyword. How is it able to do so quickly? How is it managing all those files so efficiently? That is all you have to understand in the next concepts of operating systems. But before that, I want you to understand desktop icons and control panel objects. For that, now I will show you the desktop icons. First, what do we have? We have here desktop icons, right? Desktop icons and control panel objects. For that, these are your desktop icons that you are seeing over here. This is called your desktop that we are using, and any operating system, it has its own desktop or the UI. These icons that you have over here, whatever icons you are having here, these are called the, see, I am clicking on them and these icons are getting selected, right? Wherever this mouse is, if you are able to see this mouse arrow, that is the place where I am trying to select and explaining you. Okay, so this whole thing is your UI for the operating system, and these are the icons that are the graphical user interface icons for us. We already discussed about the graphical interface icons, right? So desktop icons are nothing but they are a kind of a UI or the user interface that it is providing for us to understand. Generally, in your basic Linux and all, you will have a command prompt like this. Whatever you want to search, you have to just type in over here. Just a minute. Whatever you want to search, you have to just type in over here, and you have to find out. If you want to change your drive, sorry. Okay, this doesn't have a E drive, I guess. Okay. fine, whatever you are trying to create, you have to type it over here. If you want to create a folder, you have to type in here whatever is the folder that you want to create. But with that, you are able to, just a minute. Just a minute. We just, with this command, we are able to create a new folder over here, and here we are trying to go into that specific path. Okay. So if you want to go to that folder, you have to use such commands, where it will become, in the previous classes we were about the importance of graphical user interface. Without the user interface, it will become very difficult for users to, without the user interface, it will become very difficult for the users to understand and operate the computer. If you have a simple screen like this instead of the user interface that you have, then it will become very difficult for a user to operate only by the help of commands. Only the people who are having good knowledge about the commands and the operations of this computer will only be able to operate or manage this computer. Otherwise, an ordinary user won't be able to. That is the reason, for easier understanding and for better accessibility, we have the companies have designed the operating systems like this, in this manner. This is your whole user interface, and in this user interface we are having graphical icons. If you want to see the contents of your or if you want to identify what kind of a data it is, now because of this graphical user interface, you are able to see what is written inside that PPT, just as a gist at least. In short, you are able to see whatever is there in that file, or you are able to identify what logo, what kind of a application it is, right. See, I am able to directly move it here, and we are able to operate the icons based on the animation that we have over here. Okay, and we are able to make multiple copies just with the help of our hand touch, or with the help of icons we are able to make multiple copies. All this is happening just because of the UI that we have. And then we were discussing about desktop icons, right. So whatever applications that you install, or before going over there, whenever you install a new operating system, the operating system by default gives you a few icons on your desktop. Those are your recycle bin, where all your data is, just a minute, your recycle bin, that is all your data is available, or all the deleted files will be available in this recycle bin. And you won't have Chrome, but you will have My Computer, and you will have My Computer and recycle bin available on your desktop initially. These are the two icons that you will have. And these are the two icons by default in any Windows operating system, and you download, you will be having it. Other than that, if you want some icons to be available on the desktop, you can just create shortcuts and you can copy them onto your desktop. Desktop icons are nothing but they are used to have immediate access to whatever files we want to operate. Not always we will be able to go to the drives that we have, and we won't be able to operate the files, right. First of all, I will show you what My Computer has. In My Computer we have different drives. This this computer only has one drive available here, that is C drive. Generally we have multiple drives, and you can even divide this C drive into multiple drives. Now when you have multiple drives and you have so much data in it, it is always difficult to go into each and every drive and fetch the data that we want. That is why that is the reason, in order to reduce all that effort for the user and to make it easy for the user to pick up files that he uses or she uses every day, you can create them or you can copy them onto the desktop. Desktop is the page where we create all the icons or the data that we immediately want to access and to have them with one click on the on your screen, right? So that is the reason we have this desktop, and you can create and you can put how much ever data you want. And one more thing with desktop icons or desktop screen is, whatever data you put on this desktop, it's all linked with the operating system files folder itself. Where are your operating system files? Generally they are all in your C drive. So whatever you copy or whatever you save on the desktop, everything is stored in your C drive itself, that is in your operating system folders itself. Okay. So this is all about desktop icons. And then we have one more thing that is called control panel objects. What do you mean by control panel objects? When you have found this word, when you can go here and search for control panel. Okay. When you are searching for control panel, you will be able to see something like this. Control panel, it is an application. When you click on that, you will be able to see the whole of control panel here. Control panel is a feature that is created by this in Microsoft, just because it's difficult for any user or any person to fetch for each and every setting in one or the other place. If you have the computer has so many settings, right? Suppose let's say it has its administrative tools, it has its file history, keyboard and user account, system, your firewall settings, your network settings, internet options. You have so many settings. If you have all these settings in different places totally dispersed, if you want to search for one setting and find out, it becomes really difficult for any user to access them or to change them. So that is the reason this control panel or the desktop, these things are helping the user to make it easy, and it helps them to access or change the settings they desire to immediately without any effort. Just when you click on control panel over there, there will be a window opening, and in the window you have different control panel objects. Each of these settings is an object. So you have different control panel objects that are available. If you want to change the sound settings of your computer, you need not go somewhere else, or you need not go into the settings somewhere. You can just come to the control panel, and in the control panel you will be able to control all the major settings that are required for the user in the computer. You can change them directly with one window. In one window you will be able to find all the things that are required for the system. Suppose if I want to change the sound settings, as we were discussing, you just have to click on the sound and it will redirect to the sound properties, whatever are the sound properties. And now I am connected to a microphone, so that is the reason you are able to see the voice, whatever is the pace at which I am talking, the signal is being generated at that point. Okay. That way you will be able to see all the settings related to the sound. If you want to see what all programs are installed inside this computer, then you can just click on programs and features. When you click on programs and features, whatever programs that we have installed into this computer, and whatever programs are that are present in your computer, you will be able to see all of them here. They are all listed, and you can see the program name, what is it, and who is it maintaining it, and who is who had developed that program, and who is distributing that program, from where did you download that program. All of them will be there, and on which date you have installed the program, along with the size and version. If you want to check the version of a software or a program that you are using, it becomes very difficult for each and every program to go over to that program and check in the properties or in the settings option. So if you can just come to the control panel and you click on the programs and features there, you will be able to simply find out all the applications that are installed on your computer. Like this, you will be able to find out the programs that are there. In this computer we have different programs installed, and these are the programs that are there. Suppose if I want to uninstall one program that I don't want, suppose if I don't want WinRAR to be there on my computer, then I will just double click on it, and it will say that this is an option that is provided as a security measure in Windows, which is asking us for confirmation whether do I have to do it, because when we get such boxes, it means if I change this program, there will be an effect on the system, or that might cause some damage to the user. if I uninstall this program, I won't be able to unzip or use this for software related files anymore. That is the reason it's asking me for confirmation. If do I have to really uninstall it or not as a confirmation. I will, when I click on yes, it will ask me again for the application is now asking me. Previously the window Microsoft asked me for the confirmation. Now the WinRAR file program which is there installed, it is asking me for the confirmation. When I click on yes, it is saying you need to reboot Windows to uninstall. Okay, fine, and it starts uninstalling. Okay, and now see, you are not able to see WinRAR over here because we have clicked on the uninstall and it's gone. Now if you have to again install WinRAR, you have to go to into its website, wherever is that WinRAR website, and you have to install the program back. Otherwise, if you have the exe file that is available, you can click on that and you can do the installation procedure. That is how we manage these things. And if you just want to check, or if you want to see, refresh the programs that are there on the computer, you have an option over here on the top which is called the reload refresh button. If you click on that, you will be able to see all the data that is there. Sometimes when you are in this page and you want to update, or if you have updated an application, it won't directly reflect over here. You have to refresh it, or if you have to close it and open it, the data that is related to that program will automatically get updated here. That is the reason sometimes we use that refresh button in the control panel to understand what is the present data that is available for that required program. Okay, and then after that we have different various options related to control panels, and you can just, as an activity, you can just search them, go to the control panel and look at what are the options that are available for the computer. Okay, so with that we'll stop over here, where we were discussing about desktop icons, control panel objects, and we are completed with operating system types. Then we'll switch to, in the next session we'll start with creating files and folders, exploring the files, folders and programs, editing document files. Before seeing this, we'll just see how this file structure is related to the operating system, and we'll move on to this next topic where we'll be ending the first unit. So that's all for today. Thank you.